Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video on my channel. I hope you all are doing fine. I hope you all are doing alright. So today's video is going to be another random rambling about a philosophical question. And you really liked my other video that I made of this format, or I already made 2 videos as of right now when I'm filming this, but I think I've only uploaded 1 yet. Today's video is going to be, I think, more of an easy question, or I hope. And today's question is, what role does language play in shaping our reality? And so I asked ChatGPT again to give me a philosophical question and to just give me some, maybe 2 different ideas that 2 different people had, or 2 different, there are just 2 different opinions about this or whatsoever. There are more than 2 different opinions on this probably, but kind of like a summary of different perspectives on this is: linguistic relativists argue that language shapes thought and perception, influencing how we experience reality. Others believe that while language reflects reality, it does not fundamentally shape it. And today I would simply like to talk about this from the perspective of a language learner. And so let's get started. Alright, so I personally have already learned quite an amount of languages. I am still in the progress with most of these languages, but it's just every single language, is kind of on its own level. Sometimes I feel like I'm fluent in a language, and then I take a look at my English and I'm just not really. This language, I don't speak it as fluently as English. And although I can talk about whatever I want in English, my grammar is not always correct. And sometimes I just, when I read a book, as an example in English, I just think that in German it would be easier. And there are also some languages that I'm still learning that I can't really speak yet. But one thing that I've always noticed when learning a language, and this starts almost at the beginning, once you start learning a language, you kind of automatically also learn about the culture of the countries where the language is spoken in, or about, as an example, when you learn German, this is my native language now, but when you learn French, you not only learn about the French way of life in France, as an example, but also about the life in Canada or in parts of Canada, about the life in Morocco, about the life in a lot of different countries. And so what I've noticed is that the more I learn languages, as an example, the more I also learn about different cultures. And the more I learn about different countries, about different ways of living, different mentalities, this is the main difference. Also, sometimes the more you see the similarities between all people, basically. And so, this is definitely what I've noticed. But the more you also notice how some people, let's say they only speak one language, they only know one country, they only ever lived in one country, they only know one culture. And they, have these prejudice against someone else. And this person also has only ever seen one country, one language, one group of people, and so on. And so these people might have, a lot of prejudices against each other, although they are kind of the same, maybe. Or if I would take a look at these 2, I would just be you are the same, you have a lot of things in common. I see your similarities. And I feel like this is what you learn the more you, learn about. But this is also, you don't really need languages for that. I feel like you just need to learn about different people. But in general, the more you learn about different cultures, different countries, the more you see the similarities between different countries and cultures, in my opinion at least. And the more you, also, it's not just about the language in my opinion, but the more you learn about different countries, about different people, the more you, the more familiar everyone is to you. I don't know if this makes sense, but sometimes although I have never learned Chinese, as an example, I don't speak one single word in Chinese. Okay, maybe I know 2 words, but I don't speak Chinese. I've never learned it. I've never been to China or to any Chinese speaking country. And I know people who will be like, yeah, China, this is such a strange country, or everything is really different there and whatever. And although I personally don't know this culture, like I don't know Chinese culture, I don't know a lot about Chinese culture, I don't know a lot about China. You know, I know the very basics. I still know maybe a bit more than some other people. I don't know. Like I do know some people who really know not a lot about the world. You know, I don't want to shame anyone now, but you know, compared to, you know, the average knowledge, maybe, I don't know. But like, if you just have already experienced this, okay, there is more to this world than just one country where I'm living in, or just my way of thought or whatever, then you just are more open for different thoughts, for different cultures, for different religions, for different whatever. And I feel like this is also really valuable. Like, I really appreciate this, that I've gotten this also part, like this was also part of my language learning journey, you know. But like, also, even if you don't want to learn a language, if you are listening to someone, let's say you don't speak Spanish, and then you listen to someone talking about their life, you know, like, or you watch a Netflix series or whatever, but you watch it in Spanish, like with subtitles, like also there, I feel like you even dive a bit deeper, so to say, I don't know, or if you just, in general, if you consume media from another country, so to say, like, I don't know if I'm, like, I really want to come back to the question, really soon, but as an example, also in Germany, there are a lot of people who, or like in general, like, I feel like in the West, there are a lot of people who don't really understand the Arab world, or like also China and so on, like, or also Russia. And when you, like, you don't need to learn Russian or Arabic or Chinese or whatsoever. You don't need to learn another language in order to get a bit more understanding for the other side. You know, you just need to, I don't know, watch some news from an Arabic news channel, as an example, you know, and you don't have to be, like, you don't have to agree with what is being said, as an example, but you just have to kind of like widen your horizon, so to say. I don't know if how to say that, but I hope you know what I mean. Like you don't need to agree with the other side, so to say. You don't need to change your thoughts about the others, you know, immediately, but you can just, I don't know, realize that actually you have a lot in common with, I don't know, like, just because you are German, as an example, this does not mean that every Arab is different from every German, you know, like, actually you have a lot in common, as an example. And it's not just, like, I don't know how to say that, but like, there's a way nowadays with YouTube, with the internet, social media, you can learn more about different perspectives if you just go on the internet, basically. I hope you know what I mean. I don't really know how to say this in a better way, but you know, I feel like nowadays, like, especially like some older people I know, they can't really, I don't know, they don't really know how to use the internet. But if you are like 40, 50, you don't need prejudice anymore. Prejudices, what's the plural of prejudice? But like, you don't need this anymore, because you just, like, actually you have all the resources to learn more about others, you know? And I just see this a lot. Like, a lot of people have a lot of prejudice about a lot of people. You know, like, it's going in all directions from everyone. Everybody has prejudice. Like, not everybody, but like a lot of people, you know, have prejudice against this person, or against these people, or this way of life, or whatever, you know. And so, like, this is not really the topic, but I just wanted to say this real quick. Like, nowadays, because like, we're talking about language learning, and I really feel like if you speak the language of someone, you speak to someone in their native language, or in the language that they understand quite well, you reach them on a deeper level. I feel like this is also the problem with international communication, because if you watch the news, as an example, you just let's say you watch the news, and or let's take Germany as an example again, because I live here. Like, I'm just going to take it as an example. If now German people who don't speak English, or just a little bit of English, watch news on the US election as an example, everything that someone says is simply going to be translated. And yeah, also sometimes, like, I've also heard some translations where I was just like, I am not a professional in English, but like this could have been translated way better, you know, when there are some idioms and these kind of things, and just some sayings that only work in the language. And also with these things, like, sometimes there is a way of saying, or like also sometimes there are some words that you can only say in the language, you know, and you can't really translate it, you know, you really have to. And this is why I love learning languages, although I don't think you necessarily need it in order to get along all around the world. You know, you need English, and maybe in the future also some other languages, but you don't need to learn, I don't know, a lot of languages. Like, this is not a need to, like, you don't need that in order to get around. But it really gets you a deeper insight into, other countries, other cultures, and so on. I don't really know if language is the reason why you sometimes don't get something. Like, as an example, when you watch the news, and you watch someone being interviewed in Arabic, you know, someone speaks Arabic, and then it's being translated into English, into German, into French, into whichever language. And then if you don't understand the context together with the culture maybe, or also with the language, how the language works, all these kind of things, you tend to not really get it, you know, like in the same way as you would understand someone if you would speak the same language. Like, I feel like sometimes the language really, like, if you really speak the same language, you can communicate on a deeper level than if you simply translate it. Like, this is for a fact, I think, but I really think about if you really need language in order to communicate without any misconceptions. Like, this is my question right now to myself, what I'm actually asking myself. Because also, as an example, let's say as an example, I only know Arabic and Hebrew. Like, my Arabic is better than my Hebrew. But in these two languages, a lot of times also when writing, you start with an and. Like, if you would translate it, it's and, simply. And this and that happened. And this and that happened. And so if you translate this into English, as an example, English has a lot of words, then it might seem a bit stupid because it's always and, you know, and this happened, and that happened, and whatever. Or also in German, then it would, like, especially in German, like, if people are really into literature or whatever, they really pay attention to this. They will just be like, oh, this sounds not so intellectual. They always, like, there's always written and, you know, every single sentence starts with and, or like almost every single sentence. But if you just know that the language works like this, and this is just, like, it's still a translation, then you understand, all right, this is just how the language works, you know, like, this is not the best example now. Or it's also sometimes, like, especially with idioms, when you just have, like, a saying in your language, it doesn't work in other languages. Sometimes it does, but really rarely. Like, depending on the language you're speaking and depending on the other language you want to translate this into, it's not always going to work. Or actually it's really rarely going to work. And so also there, language shapes your thoughts. Like, language really shapes your thoughts and perception of the world a little bit. Also, like, as an example, with the sun and the moon, as an example. In German, the sun is female and the moon is male. So growing up, you will be like, as a child, you know, if there's a moon, it's a he. You know, he, the moon, he is, I don't know, whatever, you know, like, if there's a story, he, the moon, he was sad because he couldn't shine on his own or whatever. Like, and then it's a he, and you always see, if it's like a picture in a children's book, the moon has like a male face or whatever. And then if it's the sun is female in German, then it's she, the sun, she is shining, she is rising, she is setting, like the sun, she is doing whatever, it's she. And then if you have like a picture of the sun, you have like a female face on the sun as an example. Like I've seen a lot of children's movies which were like this. And on the contrary, if you grow up and let's say Italian is your native language, or French or Spanish or like a Latin language, then you learn it the other way around. And then you see the world, kind of differently, you know, like, and as you grow up, of course, you know, like the moon is a moon, it's simply a moon, you know, it's some kind of shape in a galaxy, in a solar system, and the sun is a star. You learn this as you get older, but when you are younger, you simply, have these kind of images in your head, you know, the moon is a man and the sun is a woman, or the other way around. And so until a certain age, it definitely shapes you a bit. But I don't think if it is important. I don't really think if this has a significance when growing up, whether you think the moon is a woman or a man, or like male or female. And what was it influencing how we experience reality? And others believe that while language reflects reality, it does not fundamentally shape it. Like I think I agree more with this, because it reflects reality. It also isn't reality. Like if I say the moon is a man or is male, it's not reality. It's not at all reality. It's maybe a perceived reality, and also like it's not really important. Like it's just, maybe you could think about this more if you say, like also in German you have different forms for, like in a lot of languages you have different forms for, let's say, a profession, for a job. So if it's a doctor, in English you just say doctor, and it could be a man, it could be a woman. But in German you have two different forms, and depending on which form you're using, you know if it's a female doctor or a male doctor. And this is the case in a lot of different languages. And so also in Germany, as an example, recently, over the last couple of years, people thought, how can we work with this? Like, should we change this a bit? Like, should we always include the female form as well? And does it happen that if, let's say, you say only if you only say the male form for a doctor, as an example, children think that only men or only boys, when they grow up and then they're a man, only men can become doctors? Or you say astronaut, and then you only say this and you only say the male version. Do girls stop wanting to become astronauts because they feel like, I can't become this? And so this has been a question in Germany. I don't really know the answer to this. I just know that when I was younger, when I was a child, and I grew up, like I was a child in the 2000s, you know, in the 2010s. Like I was born at the beginning of the new century. If at all, I would have thought, okay, all the doctors I go to are men, and so I didn't see a lot of female doctors. I didn't see a lot of women who were doctors. This is maybe what has shaped my perception more as a child, like actually seeing what's going on. You know, you can try to have equality in the language, but if it doesn't reflect in reality, it's not really worth a lot. Like you also need more female doctors, because otherwise it's just empty words, you know. You don't always have to include the female version for a profession, as an example, in my opinion, if it doesn't reflect in reality. It's much more important that it shows in reality, in my opinion. So if I say, let's go to the doctor, and I'm using the male version in German as an example, or in any language, like in English it's the same, as I said. But if I say I go to the doctor, and then, or like, let's go to the dentist, and then we go to a woman is a dentist, let's go to the doctor, we go to, like, a woman is a doctor, and I don't know, do you know, like, your aunt is an engineer and she's doing this and that, then the girl knows, okay, I can do all of this. But if you just say, like, I don't know, you can become an engineer, and then you use like a mixture form of both, like of the male and the female form, like, or you always use both forms, you know, or you always use the female form, it doesn't really change anything. I feel like you really have to see it in reality. Then, a girl knows, okay, I can do that too, because, like, it's not just for men. If someone just uses the male word for astronaut and then you are a girl and you become older, you can, like, at the age of 14, at the age of 12 already, at the age of 10, I don't know at which age, but quite early, that also women can become astronauts. And so then if you want to become an astronaut, you're going to working towards that, and you're not going to let a word stop you, I feel like. Yeah, this is just, I feel like it's not that much of a difference, because it only shapes the way kids think and kids see the world. And as soon as you get a bit older, you know that the moon is not a man and the sun is not a woman, and it's, and everybody can work all jobs, like, except if you can't do this for another reason, but your gender doesn't have to stop you to work a job, at least in the ideal case. And so, yeah, this is just why I don't think language plays that much of an effect. And I also don't think language should affect the way you see the world, but it should rather reflect the way you see the world. And this is basically what is going to happen if, let's say, a woman becomes an astronaut and then a girl sees her and is just like talking to another girl and is just like, oh, I saw an astronaut, and uses the female version in German, for this profession as an example. And she does this and that. I would like to become this as well, one day. Like, you really have to, I think this is how language works, like in this specific case, but also in other situations. You can be also in politics. You can really work with language. You can kind of transport ideas that you would like to talk about. Also, if you live in a country where you can't say everything that you would like to, you can work with language, So language is important, but at the same time, also here, it is shaped by reality, or it reflects reality. And I really feel like language reflects reality and it doesn't shape reality. The longer I think about this, because if you just say something and you want something to be true, it doesn't really, or like it's kind of like a mixture, maybe. It's kind of like a mixture, but you really need something happening in the real life as well, because otherwise it's just empty words, like depending on what we're talking about. But language is an important tool in politics. But also here, I think, it reflects reality sometimes, but it also can shape the way other people will see something, will see a certain event as an example. If you talk about it like this, or if you talk about it like that, if you use this word or that word, it really has an effect on how people will perceive this. If you watch the news and you use this word or that word, it can have an entirely different meaning to a person in their heads. And so, it really is a mixture. Sometimes I feel like, no, it's more like this. Sometimes I feel like it's more like that. But it really is a mixture. Depends on the case. But I would just say that more people should look past the language in general. It doesn't matter in which kind of way. It doesn't matter if someone is just talking propaganda, and you just have to realize that just because someone uses a certain word or speaks really eloquently or whatever, this doesn't have to be true. But to end the video, I feel like language is an important tool in communication. And it's kind of like a mixture. It shapes thoughts, but it also reflects reality. And I just feel like we should put an emphasis on language, but at the same time also not too much, I feel like, because like you should just see past empty words as an example, past empty words from, let's say, politicians, or you should recognize propaganda as an example, or just because someone says something, I feel like in general you should just always listen to multiple people, not just about politics. Like in a lot of different cases, you should just listen to someone and really just acknowledge what is being said, and then also listen to someone else and acknowledge what's being said, and listen to someone else and acknowledge what's being said, and just kind of, think about what you believe in, what you think is right or wrong, and so on. Because language really can shape someone's thoughts and how they perceive the world, or how they see certain things, how they look at certain things. And I really think it's kind of like a mixture. So there are still a lot of things I wanted to say probably. I really think I missed some things. But I hope you could somehow follow my thoughts. Like sometimes I'm a bit chaotic. So I hope you could follow along. Because my thoughts, like sometimes I just start talking about an entirely different topic. But I hope you liked the video. And if you did, I would really appreciate it if you would give it a like. And if you didn't like it, feel free to let me know why in the comments. And also feel free to let me know your thoughts on this question in the comments. And so thanks for watching. Thanks for watching until now if you're still watching. And see you in the next video. Alright, bye.